The YouTube stream is now live as well.
Hi, Claire. Okay, I think it's 3 o'clock, so we're due to start. So thank you everyone for attending. Ringing World AGM now for 2021. We've got a fairly short agenda, which I'm sure you're all pleased about. So we'll kick off then. So the minutes which have been circulated from the last meeting, are there any comments on that or anything or corrections we need to that before we approve them?
Yeah, no hands raised.
Good, thank you very much. So we'll take those as approved then. Thank you very much. Right, moving on then. So the next item is to receive the company's accounts, and for this, sorry, is that how it's done? Sorry, Colin.
Okay. Okay, so most people have voted, and there are the results, Paul.
Thank you very much. So Claire, do you approve that? Do you record that as how it works? Is that correct, Claire?
We'll wait for Colin to send me the Zoom details,
Okay.
numbers, etc.
Good. Okay, thank you, Claire. Right, so moving on then. So next is the company accounts, which Richard, you will present on. Thank you.
Yes, I've got some slides, so hopefully I can share the screen and they will show. Hello everyone. A year ago I gave my report on a good set of 2019 figures. I went on to report on the half year's figures for 2020 that included the start of the effect of COVID. They did not look good. As time went on, the changing forecast looked even worse, and the actual inactivity of a prolonged period of no tower bell ringing that's only recently come to an end meant that a major source of income reduced by over 50% immediately.
Yeah, Richard, can I just stop you there? My apologies. We can only see part of your slide on the screen. We can only see the right-hand side of it. We can't see the whole thing.
Okay, so I stop sharing. Is that better?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, I don't know what I did, but just chose another thing. Okay, thanks. The AGM in Hull in 2015 endorsed the board's decision to encourage donations rather than charge for printing peels and quarters. But when performances aren't being run, that income source vanishes. Even now, donations each month are only half what they used to be. 1,975 in July compared to up to £4,000 most months up to March 2020. Page 1 of the accounts pack includes some words on last year that I won't read out for verbatim here. Most of the rest of the pack are the statutory narrative and figures needed, but pages 17 and 18 are probably those of most interest to people. I shall briefly highlight some aspects here, verbally and on screen. Overall, the company had a deficit of £28,748 compared to a small deficit of £1,445 in 2019. I think this is the largest deficit ever for the company. It has been necessary to use some of the reserves that have been built up in the past to cover it. Incoming resources were £17,000 down on last year, and this is mainly due to the lower level of donations for 9 months of the year, £29,000 less. Subscription income increased last year after the rates were increased by inflation. The effects of COVID and no ringing would not show up for up to a year. Most subscriptions are, of course, for a year in advance. Advertising income also continued the long-term trend of reducing. Merchandise was more of a mixed bag. The Ring World definitely missed out on some tower orders, where all those in a band placed a large order in the autumn due to no in-person meetings. Diary income was down £5,000 and calendar sales were also down. This was mitigated by Will proactively looking at selling more items, which included the George Pipe book, where sales meant we needed to print more, the Methoduku puzzle book, and some items formerly from the Loughborough Bell Foundry Museum. There's also new ones this year, including the purple book. I do encourage you all to look at the website to see the range we now have on offer, including some great new Christmas cards coming up and other items. So pre-order now. On the expenditure, this was up 9,500 from last on the year before. This was after a decision to invest some money in the future, as we reported a year ago. The largest single expense is the staff we employ to produce the paper and the administration of that and the subsidiary activities. The expense has increased this year. The board decided that the company needed more resources on the digital side, and Sam White joined us to make 6 part-time employees of the Ringing World. We still have nearly 2,000 postal subscribers, so the printing and franking of the printed version is the next largest expense. Franking rates are set by Royal Mail, and despite numbers going down slightly, the price rise was more than those reductions. The printing costs are higher this year, as we now have a full colour cover each week on better quality paper, and the cost of the compostable wrapper has also been included on this line. The good news on both of these items is that after some detailed hard work by Paul Jopp, we will soon change to a new printer with a better product and also access to a cheaper Royal Mail product for postage. But Paul has more of that to say in his report coming up later. The cost of running an office is really the management section of the costs and has reduced this year by £1,700. With staff working remotely for some time, the need for an office has been considered again, but having somewhere to store the stock and for the admin and finance staff to work together led the board to continue this arrangement. Having new stock means that the merchandise purchases has increased and that they are sold on to generate a small but worthwhile contribution to the net position. When the board met last November, the UK was just going into the second lockdown and there was a pessimistic view from many. It soon became apparent that without a normal level of donations, a balanced budget would be impossible. Briefly, a large rise in subscription rates was considered to compensate for the expected loss of subscribers, but soon dismissed as too many would not renew. In the end, an optimistic low level of non-renewals and a 3% increase in subscriptions was agreed and implemented. We also started to phase in more donations from the spring and hoped that tower orders for merchandise would be possible again in the autumn. On expenditure, we continued to invest in the extra digital member of staff for the whole year and try to be realistic with some savings. If we did decide to expand the merchandise and offer, it wouldn't be sold at a loss, so extra income would cover this spend. As previously mentioned, franking costs should show meaningful savings under a new contract from this month, but some of the savings will come from a reduced print run and postage as we have fewer subscribers now. The phasing of the budget has the merchandise income and costs in the second half of the year. The company also has a lower salary bill in April to July as the government pays an employment allowance for small companies of £4,000. Income for the first 6 months of the year is as forecast in total, but increased merchandise sales are masking concerning lower subscriptions. I guess this may have come up in Central Council earlier, but the total number of ringers is declining and the rate of non-renewals has increased. A few have transferred to online from postal version, and the recently launched tower subscriptions is one way we are starting to try and address this. We are also looking at monthly subscriptions, but the admin time involved in that is too much at the moment with our current systems. The company has also tried to keep costs under control. There is no major item that stands out here, but the slide shows some items that are slightly over or under budget. Some staff work more when there is more to do, such as sending out the diaries and calendars, but also take times off when times are quiet. At year end, payroll costs are expected to be on budget. I shall end by highlighting note 15 on page 15 that shows the reserves of the company. At the end of the year, they are expected to remain apparently healthy at over £150,000. However, that will be after 2 years of losses of totaling £50,000, so are getting a concern. The board hasn't yet launched a fundraising campaign, but if a significant investment in a new digital way forward or other items may mean that this will be necessary to continue with a reasonable reserve. In the meantime, every single donation you wish to make will be gratefully received. That's it from me, except to say that if there's any questions, I'll try and answer now or get back to you with an answer if I don't know immediately.
Thank you, Richard. Any questions?
We have a hand raised from Philip Green. Philip, you should be able to unmute now.
Can I just very comprehensive, Richard, but can I just ask if the company received any of the COVID grants that were going to sort of hand out £10,000 and £15,000?
We did apply for them, but as we are on the charity rate on the rates, and over council didn't think we were eligible, and after going back and querying that, it wasn't worth it. I mean, we didn't furlough any staff because we considered that we could still produce the product, and Will did an amazing job throughout the time. So, and the staff actually thought they probably worked a bit harder working from home and that sort of thing. So in the end, we didn't seem to be eligible for any grants that we could have applied for.
There are no other hands raised. Oh, no, hang on one moment. Sorry, a question from Michael Church. Michael, you should be able to talk.
Thank you, Colin. Michael Church, Winchester and Portsmouth Diocesan Guild, and as original subscriber to the memorandum. My apologies, Mr. Chairman, because I'd not given notice of the points I'm going to make, but I only went through the accounts in detail yesterday. And the questions anyway are really to be addressed to the company secretary and or Richard. I mentioned the company secretary because she is the one who signs off on the trustees report. Last year, I pointed out that we still referred to Christian worship 3 times in the trustees report in objectives and activities, even though these words were omitted in the current memorandum. And I was told by the chairman that was a copy and paste problem. This year, we still seem to be having a problem in trying to get the update of the trustees report correct. We're still using the old Christian worship words, although we have added the word subsequently amended. But the trustees' report seems to me as though it's been largely taken from the previous year. I don't know whether that was done by one of the directors or the company secretary, or whether it was done by the accountants that we employ. But it refers to a surplus being made in the year. It refers to the incorrect number of directors that there are. And it refers to circulation figures that were copied from the previous report of 2,700, when the editor's editorial back in June highlighted many unsubscriptions. So I would like to know what precisely is the circulation figure at the moment. It just seems rather sloppy and careless and doesn't look very professional. And I do think that the company secretary who is signing the trustees report should go through it very carefully to ensure that the wording is correct and up to date before filing these accounts publicly. As I say, I'm disappointed after the points that I made last year that the theme of what I said has not been picked up. So I do urge the officer to look at it carefully, because it just doesn't look very good to the outside world if we're not taking care with the published trustees report.
Yes, thank you, Michael. So, Claire, I wasn't aware of this, but is that correct that there are inconsistencies in the trustees' report?
I only normally receive it to sign once it's all been completed, and it goes from the independent examiners to Richard, and then yourself, and then I sign it as the final signatory.
Okay, I think, Michael, then all we can do is to promise to do better next year. Yeah, I certainly was one of the signatures on that, so I will personally make sure that it's correct next year.
Thank you. I'm happy to take this back offline with you and not take it dwell on it anymore now, Paul.
Okay.
Because I have an answer to the question about what is the circulation at the Ringing World, which is stated in the trustees' report to be 2,700.
I'm afraid I don't have a direct number on that, but I can come back to you with it. It's around that sort of number, with if you add together online subscribers and paper subscribers. It's around 2,000 paper subscribers and 500-600, I believe, online subscribers. But I can get an exact number on that for you, Michael.
Thank you. Thank you, Paul.
We have no other hands raised, Mr. Chairman.
I think I formally propose it. I think, are you prepared to vote on? Or don't we?
Yeah, there is a poll ready when you'd like it launched.
I think I formally propose it, and I think one of my colleagues is going to second it.
Okay, let's see.
His hand up, Paul.
Okay, I'll launch the poll. Okay, so the vast majority of people have voted. So on the screen there are the results, Paul.
Thank you. So the report is carried. Thank you. Right. Moving on then. So, Chairman's report. Now, the chairman's report, I had to prepare with information from other people because I guess you all know that I didn't actually join the board until January. So this wasn't really my year, but anyway, I've prepared the report, and it has been circulated. But what I've also done is put together some slides to show what we've done since that year, because I think that's probably more important than what happened in that year, which pretty much is, say, is already in there. So if I could put my slides up, and Colin, you might just have to help me with this.
If you should be able to share your screen and then select either which screen or which application.
Okay.
Okay. That looks good.
Yeah, okay, I'll just put it into slideshow mode then. Does that appear correctly?
Yes, we can see that.
Good. Okay, so I'll go through these then. Right. So when I joined the board in January, then I have to say I was very impressed with what the staff and other people had done to keep the ring wheel going actually during this very, very difficult period. So I thought it appropriate to actually to thank those people for what they've managed to do. So I don't know how many people are aware of the people that work for the ringing world, but there are 3 people in the Andover office. So we have the finance lady, Christine Hooker. We have a person that deals with administration, that's Jackie Carras, and we have a compositor, Chris Carrier, or how he's known by the word compo. But so those 3 guys, they're all part-time. They've managed to keep going through COVID. They've done a fantastic job. They worked out of the office for many, many months. They are now back in the office, and I think they're very grateful for that because they enjoy actually working directly with each other rather than working remotely. But they've kept it going, and we've all seen the results of that. So thank you very much to those 3 people. We've got the editorial team. Will Bosworth, who's the editor, which is a full-time position, and Chris Teasdale, who's based up north, and he's a sub-editor. I'm sure we can all see the results of the work they've done, and it is absolutely fantastic. It's amazing how they've managed to keep copy going throughout the whole of the year, when really there's not been that much ringing activity. But they've kept articles going. We've produced, Simon Linford's blog has been in there, and many other things, which I think everyone's appreciated. So it's a really, really big thanks to Will and Chris for doing that. And then there's the unsung heroes, the people that are sort of behind the ringing world supporting IT. Now, Richard Smith is the main developer of Billboard. In fact, he developed it initially, and he's gone on and supported it and has continued that development. He does a great job. There's so many things that he does that people just don't know about, but he really does a great job there. Sam White, who is our digital assistant, that's actually a paid position, and there's many of the probably more cosmetic things that you see on Billboard that are a result of Sam's work. And there's Bill Hibbert, who does quite a lot of work in the background as well, not just on Billboard, but on other IT systems that we run in the office. So again, a great, it's great what they do, and I'd like to thank them very, very much for that. I have to also say about the past directors. So, when I took over in January, then obviously David Grimwood was the previous chairman. He led the board through, I think, quite difficult times right at the start of the COVID crisis. Richard Smith, he'd served on the board for 6 years. And as I've just said, he provides support for Billboard and develop Billboard, and he does all that on a voluntary basis, and he does many other things as well. And Doug Davis, who actually resigned in January, I believe, and he'd served on the board for 2 years. And so thank you to all those 3 people for all their work they've done. So what have we done in terms, what have we done to help the ringing world during this period? Now, one thing that obviously is within our control are cost savings. That's something that is very important that we looked at and did something about. So you'll see from this slide that actually they are quite significant. So we have renegotiated, or we've obtained a more preferential deal with Microsoft, which has enabled us to migrate all of our email across to that. And that actually is saving us £700 a year, significant saving. We've migrated our finance system from Sage to a product called Xero. That's saving us £800 a year. Our biggest costs are on print and distribution, so that was a sort of key area that I've been looking at. We've been negotiating with a company called Pyramid Press in Nottingham. Now the savings are not that great, £450 a year, but what we're getting from that is a much higher quality product than we currently have. We'll get additional colour pages. The resolution of the colour images will be better than we've got at the moment. There will be coating on the paper, which will give it a much nicer look and feel. And also we are becoming more, in fact, I would say totally environmentally friendly now. So the paper is sourced from, that's FSC compliance is what it's called, but I think it's the Forestry Commission. So the paper comes from renewable or well-managed forests. And also the paper will be carbon balanced. So that means that we will, well, I don't know quite how they balance it out, but I think they plant trees or something to offset the carbon that's used to produce the paper. So that will launch from now. So the next issue that comes out next week will be printed at Pyramid Press in Nottingham. The other thing we've done is to negotiate a contract with Royal Mail to use their machine sortable mailmark product. Now, I guess a lot of people have seen this in operation with Mail You Receive, but it's basically a barcoded mail address, which allows it to, it will allow the ringing world to go through their machine sorting software rather than having to be manually sorted. So it represents a significant saving on what we have today. And it's around £7,000 a year. I mean, we'll see in practice what it is when we start seeing the bills come through, but it looks like it's at least £7,000 a year. It's also traceable, so it goes through their track and trace system, which means that we will be able to go onto their online portal and actually see where every copy of the Ringing World is. Whether it's late, whether where it's got to in the process, and so on. So that will give us much more control over it. And also, it is a direct contract with Royal Mail rather than going through our printers, which we've done previously. So hopefully that will solve a lot of these problems around mailing, which we all know are out there at the moment. And again, that goes live through the new printer on next week. We haven't yet done it, but we are going to migrate our payroll system from a system called Iris, and we're moving that across to Xero as well. That will save us another £200 a year. And also, the Bellboard has been developed to actually automatically typeset peels, which was done manually, and they were hosted on peels.co.uk. So with that change, then we're going to be saving about £5,000 a year, and that's already happened. So that will we'll see that coming through. So as you can see, that's that's really good news. Saving £14,000 a year is at least £14,000 a year is very good news, and hopefully a better product. We have produced some things over the year in terms of publications. So I'm sure many of you have seen the George Pike biography that John Lovelace produced. Methoduke and Mayhem, that small book of puzzles from Mark Davis. We've just launched the Little Purple Ringing book, which Richard Smith has primarily created. And we obtained the Ringer's Handbook, and we now produce that. In the pipeline are Simon Linford's PPE book, the Education Column Collection, that's David Smith from Australia, has put that together. Crib Lines, the small book of method lines, that is again produced by Richard Smith. And we've got some new Christmas cards, so they will be launched very soon. Okay, so Billboard Development. So there's a lot of work being done around Billboard, primarily Richard Smith, but also Sam White has been working on this. So as I mentioned previously, we know our appeal reports are automatically typeset. We've established Virtual Hub. I mean, all these things, if you go onto Billboard, you'll see them and what they do. Tower subscriptions, that was launched last week. And hopefully there'll be a good take up on that. Publication day email notification. This is basically where you get an email to say that the magazine has been produced that week. And this is really for online viewers that may have forgotten that it's Friday. There is a ballot system in there for doing polling and surveys. I don't know how widely that's used, but it is a feature that's in there. There's been enhancements to support reporting of online performances. So this is during the lockdown when we've been doing things online, ringing room and stuff like that. And there's various filters and ways of reporting on sort of non-human and other types of performances. And there's many other back-end developments that have been going on to better support the admin in the office and the way that we operate the ringing world. So there's been a lot of work going on there, and it's all very good stuff. IT developments, and this is really about the future. So where do we want to go on IT developments? I think there's little doubt that Billboard really has become the go-to website for people to find out what's going on in the world of ringing in terms of court appeals and other type ringing events and appeals and all the rest of it. And we are continuing to develop that. But I'm sure you all know that that comes free. We don't charge anybody for any of those things, and it's a fantastic product. And we're totally reliant on donations, and people do donate, which is very, very good. But if you look at it from a business point of view, that's not a sustainable model. We can't carry on like that. We have to do something to, if we're going to do some good developments in the future. Now, I took the view that the board probably didn't have all the right people to work out how to push this thing forward and to get the right IT developments out there. And by the right ones, I mean ones that are commercially successful. We can all do little programs to do this, that, and the other, but they don't necessarily sell, and they can also cost you a lot of money. So what I thought would be the best thing to do, and we've discussed this at the board, is that we would put together a small working group to actually look at this in more detail. Now, I've already put out feelers for this, and I've got a couple of people that are happy to get involved. But I guess I would also put that plea out to members today. If there's anyone that would like to get involved in this and give us their great thoughts on how we can move IT development forward in a commercial way, then please get in touch with me. My email is chairman@ringingworld.co.uk. So just write to me if you think there's something that you can contribute to this. And I think it would be nice if we got people across all spectrums of bell ringing as well. Young ringers, old ringers, court appeal ringers, Sunday service ringers. The broad spectrum of people. And then lastly, I'd like to advertise again what we're doing next week. So next Saturday is the Ringing World National Youth Competition or contest. It's great to see it back. I think, it's been published in the Ringing World anyway, but we've had 20 teams enter. Fantastic after all that downtime that young ringers are still out there and wanting to do it. I think we all know that Worcester's a fantastic location. I might be a little bit biased, but I think Worcester Cathedral have the best ring of bells in the world. So what a wonderful place to go. Sorry, I can see Alva nodding her head saying, no, York is far better.
You're definitely wrong there, Paul.
So I'd like to say thank you to the sponsors. A lot of this is done, courtesy of sponsors really. So Alan Hughes from Whitechapel Bell Foundry, the trophy comes from Alan. He's also providing some handbells on the day for us to do handbell ringing. So thank you very much to Alan Hughes. The Wesley Group are sponsoring us this year. The Worshipful Company of Girdlers, the Worshipful Company of Founders, and the VCT Charitable Trust. They're all providing sponsorship money to support this event. And without their support, it would be very difficult to run this. So thank you very much to all those people and all those groups. And of course, there's all the people that have been involved in the organisation of this. David Hull is the overall organizer. He's he's put the program together and all the rest of it. So thank you, David, for all of that. From Worcester Cathedral, Mark Regan and David Jenkins have been doing the work within Worcester to make sure there's minibuses and all the towers are open and all those sort of things. So thank you to those two guys. And Alva and Will Bosworth from the Ringing World, they put an awful lot of work into this as well. And I'm sure there are many, many others, but those are the sort of names that I know have done a hell of a lot of work to make it a successful day. So, I'd urge everyone to turn up who thinks that they can help. And I think we'll have a great day. I don't know what the weather forecast is, but hopefully it's sunny.
Not good.
Okay. So that is my, okay. So thank you very much. So any questions?
My apologies to Michael if this is an old hand raised, but I've still got Michael Church's hand raised. Is that for this time, Michael, or last time?
It shouldn't be raised, Colin.
Yeah, my apologies. I forgot to lower it. Okay, so we do have a question from Tina Stockland. Paul, Tina, you should be able to talk.
Hello, Tina Stockland from the Scottish Association. Thank you, both of you, for your overview of what's going on. And certainly the action you've taken for cost saving is really impressive. It is a really impressive start, but that's still nowhere near covering the deficit for the Ringing World. And what I thought in the chairman's report was there was a lot of optimism without necessarily acknowledging the fact that it's going to take a while for donations to pick up because ringing performances are not picking up. And also, we don't know that performances are going to return to pre-COVID levels. And so what I was kind of hoping to see in this report was some thinking about worse, less optimistic scenarios. And also maybe an idea of how long, clearly we're in an extraordinary situation. And presumably in 2021, there's still going to be some form of deficit. But what I don't see is sort of a 3 to 5 year plan ahead to see where the ringing world needs to be, or in fact, how long you think it's acceptable to run at deficits, or what plan and how long you might think to take to get to a profitable level. I think that would be very reassuring. I mean, we all recognize that the ringing world is a really important resource, and I'm sorry that the circulation, is such that maybe not as many people are reading it who ought to, because the editorial team has been brilliant at producing ringing worlds that have been thought-provoking and interesting to read in really, really difficult climate. And they rose to a huge challenge. And I think without the ringing world, the exercise would be very much the poorer. But what I would be looking to see is some kind of more structured plan and acknowledgement of some harsh realities, and how that can be dealt with.
Yeah, thank you, Tina, for that. So yeah, you're right. I mean, we have to have a plan. Certainly, we have attacked the cost issue. There probably are some other things we can do there. We could look again at the office lease, for example, and things like that. I mean, so far we've decided not to cut quality in any way. We've decided not to try and reduce the print to either the print quality or the frequency of the magazine. So we want to continue with a weekly magazine. We think that's important. So really, it's about revenue we're talking about now. Obviously, IT development and digital development is always the way that people say you've got to go. It's the world is digital. That's how you're going to make money. I think that's right, but you have to be very careful about how you do that, because you can also spend a lot of money and actually get nothing at all. So it needs to be considered carefully. And I think once we've gone through that and we've come up with some ideas from the working group, then I would hope that we'd be able to present a proper business plan, a commercial business plan, rather than just a sort of wish list of things that we want to do. So that has to be the way forward. We've got our budget meeting in November. I think it's October or November. Can't remember exactly, Claire. It's in the next 2 months anyway, when we will set the budget for next year. And obviously that's going to be a big topic of, are we going to run for another year with a loss, or are we going to be able to make some significant inroads into that, so we come at least back to break even or even profit. I think there are healthy signs in ringing. I think there are, you can see already there are the numbers of court appeals and appeals are starting to increase again. The regular appeal bans are starting out again. I'm personally involved in some of those, and I know court appeal ringers the same. So I guess donations will start to increase. So hopefully we can get a balanced budget next year based just on donations. But thank you, Tina. I mean, it's a difficult situation we're in, and it's difficult to work a way out of it.
So next hand raised is Robert Lewis. Robert, you should be able to unmute.
Hello, can you hear me? Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah, Robert Lewis, Middlesex County Association, and like Tina, former editor of the Ringing World, as you all know. Tina actually raised quite a lot of what I was going to say, but I still had my hand up. So I can't emphasize enough, as somebody who's actually done the job for a long time, what a phenomenal feat actually Will Bosworth and his team have pulled off in keeping the paper going over probably one of the most challenging periods in its history. And I think it's a really, really impressive thing to see. And, I think anybody who's associated with that can feel really proud. It's good. Somebody else I'd like to see acknowledged actually in the thanks is Tom Lawrence, who for many years performed processing on our appeals reports, and that function has now been, I understand, fully automated. And Tom has done really sterling work on that, and I think does deserve publicly thanking for that. My final thought is on the youth contest, which, you know, it's fantastic to see it going ahead again next Saturday. And I'm so sorry that because I have to attend a memorial service for a former member of staff that I can't go to it, but I'm sure it's going to be a terrific day. One thing I would say is that it's also great to see the level of sponsorship that is now attracting. And I believe that it would be possible to fully fund that event from sponsorship. And I think we really need to look after and cultivate those sponsors and attract new ones where possible. So I would urge the board to please try and the organising team to go ahead and do that. And finally, a word of thanks to the board. I know it's been a pretty awful year, probably in many respects, and some difficult things have had to be tackled. But thank goodness, you know, people are prepared to serve in what can be a pretty thankless job. So thank you to all of you too.
Thank you, Robert. That's very kind. Thank you. I did acknowledge thanks to Tom in the chairman's report. So it is down in writing. It's under finance.
That's good.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
So next hand raised, Chairman, is Peter Harrison. Peter, you should be able to unmute.
Thank you, Peter Harrison and Tab. I'd just like to thank the board for introducing tile-based subscriptions, especially over here in Australia and New Zealand. This is something we've been interested in for the last couple of years. There's been a number of people who are never going to buy a paper copy for £140, which is over 300 Australian dollars. And some wouldn't even buy the personal electronic versions. The tile-based subscriptions is a good way to get those who wouldn't pay otherwise to get some sort of subscription out of them. Just other quick notes for something I saw in the chat. I think the reminder that the Ring World is published via email is actually a useful thing for very busy people. I have a reminder in my work diary to read the Ring World during my Friday lunch break. Especially for those of us who are in lockdown again. At the moment, I think the month is March, let alone know what day of the week it is. So I think it's just a handy little thing to have. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Peter.
Okay, we have one more hand raised, Chairman. That's Peter Scott. Peter, you should be able to unmute.
Peter Scott, Yorkshire Association. We talked last year about the charitable incorporated organisation. It was, after all, passed by. There was a majority of people in favour of it, even if it didn't get the 75% majority required. What has happened to that proposal since then, and are you still thinking of progressing it?
Yeah, thanks, Peter. So yes, it has been discussed at length actually by the board, and Graham Lay has been also done a lot of work on it to improve and get it into a better position. But during those discussions, we felt that it was not really the right thing to do at this moment. So that's why we've not brought it to this meeting. We don't, as I say, the groundwork has been done by Graham, so you know everything's there if we ever decide that it's a great thing to do in the future. But for the moment, we don't want to bring that forward. But thank you to Graham for all the work he has done on that.
Okay, we have no other hands raised, Chairman.
Okay, so I guess, so can we go to the vote on that? So does somebody need to propose a report? So if I propose a report for approval, and Alva second, so yeah. So if we could put the voting screen up, please, Colin.
Polls on screen now. Okay, votes are in, and Chairman, there are the results.
Thank you. So the report's adopted. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on. So the next thing is to ratify the number of directors. So Claire, would you explain this one, please?
Well, basically at the meeting in Chester, which I think was 2011, it was agreed to have a maximum number of directors as 9. This was unfortunately never followed through, and it's not been included in our articles. So we just want to get that ratified and then sort of push it through, because we feel that that should be something that's put into the articles formally.
Okay, we have a couple of hands raised, Chairman. So we have Fred Bone. Fred.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Fred Bone, Essex Association. It's my understanding that in order to change the articles, you need a special resolution, which is why the articles provided for an ordinary resolution to limit the number of directors. But if you want to update the articles, I think you need to have a resolution spelling out that that's what you want to do. So I'm not quite sure why there is any point in this current item on the agenda. Thank you.
Paul, can I comment on this, please?
Yeah.
It's an interesting point, Fred. The articles say that the number of directors can be set by an ordinary resolution, and that was proposed and properly voted for in 2011, as Claire says. The problem is that we have an inconsistency between what an AGM has decided and what the articles say. And so consequently, it is by no means clear what the directors are obliged to do. And so the purpose of this action is simply to incorporate a decision that has already been made into the articles. Given that the articles say specifically that only a ordinary resolution is required to change the limit on the number of directors, if that's the specific change that's being made, I don't see that you need a special resolution to decide it.
As you say, the articles say that there's no limit on the number of directors unless otherwise provided by a special resolution. We have had the special resolution that stands until another resolution might be passed, which would vary it, either to remove it or to replace it with a different limit. That being so, I can't see any point in this, and specifically, this does not. The agenda paper doesn't mention updating the articles, and if that's what you want to do, I think you would be. I think you believe you are obliged to say so.
I think that the reason why there was no information was that we believe that a resolution, the resolution in 2011, was adequate for the purposes.
So what's this all about then? I believe it. I also believe it was perfectly adequate. As I say, it stands until varied. So I don't see any point in this, and in particular, I don't. As I say, I don't think you can use this as a basis for changing the articles.
I think we need an expert to comment
do.
on that,
Yeah.
because
We
none of
do-
us know,
we
I
do-
think, is the answer.
Yeah, Chairman, we do have another hand raised. Michael Church has a hand raised. Michael, you should be able to unmute.
Thank you, Colin. I did raise my hand right at the beginning, but it's not been noticed. But anyway, the point, I think, is that you did not have to file ordinary resolutions at Companies House. The number of directors or trustees was correctly increased in 2012 to 9. That is as far as it needs to go. If you want to alter the articles that are filed publicly at Companies House, then I think you probably have to do it by way of a special resolution, which needs special notice and needs to be done in accordance with the provisions of the Companies Act. But as far as I can see, I'm with Fred Bone the whole way, that what was done in 2012 was correct, and as it was done by way of an ordinary resolution, that does not need to be filed or notified to Companies House. I'm not an expert. Simon's nodding, which is heartening, and so is Elva, but those of us who have been involved in companies, running companies, I think probably understand that to be the position. I hope that's helpful.
Okay, so yeah, so Michael and Fred, it sounds like you're both agreeing on that. Simon and Elva, can I take it from your nods that you, in terms of company law, you believe that to be correct also?
I think that's right.
Yeah. And therefore, and I'm sorry, Claire, because we did raise this at the last board meeting, then we don't need to make the change that we're proposing. So thank you. Okay. Right. So,
Chairman, my apologies. Andrew Wilby's hand went up before that discussion was finished. 1 second. Andrew, you should be able to unmute.
I'm sorry, Chairman. I was just going to try and help you out by proposing next business, but you got yourself out of that. So thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Okay, so moving on then. So the next is to appoint directors. First of all, I'd like to say thank you to Simon Linford and to David Smith. I don't know whether David's here today, but Simon certainly is. So thank you for the time you spent on the board and what you've done. And yeah, thank you very much, Simon, for last year, effectively getting me involved as well. So I actually feel it's an honour to be on this board. So thank you very much, Simon. And I know that you now wish to no longer continue in that role. So thank you. David, so I don't know whether David's here, but thank you to you as well, David, for the time and effort you've put into the board while you've been here. So we have one person who's already on the board, Graham Lay, who is happy to be reappointed, and Alva and myself also are up for, and we've been nominated to be on the board again. And I understand, Alva, that you're happy for that, and I certainly am as well. So, Colin, do we need to take them one by one, or do we?
I've prepared 3 separate polls, Chairman.
3 separate polls, okay. So what order do you want them in?
It doesn't matter. Okay,
so, well, maybe take me first then. So I've been nominated by Andrew Wilby. Andrew, you may wish, you're still on live, so perhaps you confirm that.
Am I still online? Oh,
you are.
Oh, wonderful. Just as well I didn't say anything else then, wouldn't it? Delighted to propose you, Paul. I think you've hit the ground running, and you've done an excellent job this year. Keep on, and it's really good news. Delighted to propose you.
Thank you. Okay, right. So, do we need to put the poll up, Claire? Is that how it works, or do we need a seconder? No
we
seconders.
Don't need seconders.
Okay, so so Colin, could you put the poll up, please?
The poll is on the screen now, which is very badly worded. My apologies. The top one is for, the bottom one's against.
Oh.
Sorry. Okay, the results are on the screen, Chairman.
Okay. Well, thank you everyone for showing your confidence in me. Thank you. So we'll move on to the next one. So this is Elva Ainsworth. Elva, you're being proposed or nominated by
I'm Michael Church.
Michael Church. Michael, do you want to say any words on that?
Can you hear me, Paul?
Yes.
Right, yeah, only to endorse exactly what Andrew has just said, and also in relation to my proposal of Elva for the same reasons. As you know, 3 or 4 of us were involved in hoping to broaden the expertise on the board at the end of last year, and it was good that you and Elva both came on board. I'm sure they won't mind me mentioning them, but Andrew Wilby, Robert Lewis and Simon were all concerned for the ringing world, and our concern is not just historical, but it is current, Paul, and that is why we were pleased to see that you and Elva and Simon stepped up to the mark last November, and I'm glad to see that you've been re-elected, and I hope that Elva, she can't beat your vote, but equals your vote in a moment's time. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
Okay, Chairman, would you like me to launch the poll?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Okay, the poll is on the screen with the correct options. Okay, and the results are on the screen, Chairman.
Thank you. So, Elva, you are duly appointed.
Thank you.
Okay. And then so the final one is Graham Lay. So your proposer is Tony Crowther. Is Tony on the call? Yes, he is. Yeah.
Yes, I'd just like to say I'm pleased to propose Graham as a member. I think you do an excellent job. I think you bring a lot of experience to the new experience to the role. So I can't really say anything else.
Thank you, Tony. So yes, could we put the poll up then, please, Colin?
The poll is on the screen now. And those are the results.
Thank you. So Graham, you're duly elected. Thank you.
I do believe that Simon Linford has his hand raised.
Yes, I just wanted to say that I don't want anyone to view me not being a board member as in any way negative. I stood for a year to help in a transition period. I've got a lot to do with the President's of the Central Council work, and I'll still attend board meetings as a guest. But I did only say I'd do it for a year, and I only got a pass for a year.
Okay. We also have a hand raised from Michael Church.
Paul, I'm sorry, it's me again, and thank you for indulging me. The number of directors has reduced by 25%, and I do wonder whether there are any skill set gaps which you are looking to fill, or what you might be intending to do in order to bring the number of directors back up to the sort of level that it has been. And I stress again, Paul, that this is made as a comment with somebody who's got not just historical interest, but deep current interest in the paper.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. I did look at this, and there were some people that I did approach. I thought an area that where we could do with some additional help was in the area of IT. I did speak to some people about that. They weren't able this time to actually stand. So I think we just need to keep reviewing this and see where we need to go. But IT seems to be the sort of big gap at the moment. I mean, Doug Davis was on the board, and he was obviously an IT person. Elva's pretty literate with IT. I'm pretty literate with IT, and so are others. But you know, a specific IT person might be quite helpful if there's anyone out there. Okay, so right, so moving on then. So item 6 on the agenda then is to appoint Lansdowne's DFK Chartered Accountants and business advisors as independent examiners, and to authorise the directors to fix their remuneration. So do we go straight to a poll on this, Claire? I'm not sure, or does it need a proposer for that?
Needs a proposal.
Okay, Richard, I presume you'd want to propose this.
It's not usually seen good for the finance director to propose the examiner, so usually someone else has done it.
Okay. Anyone else from the board would like to propose this? So yeah, so Bob Crichton has proposed it, and I'm happy to second it. So okay, so if we can get the poll up, thank you.
There it is. Okay, and there are the results.
Thank you. So they are appointed. Thank you. So Colin, I noticed that the sort of messages come up on the screen from various people, but are these things getting addressed? I'm not sure. I think it was Caroline Stockman just raised a question about errors.
Yeah, so I haven't been directly monitoring the chat, Chairman. I think that is a new question. There is an open question in the Q&A as well.
Okay, so I guess if we move on to any other business then, which is the last item, then we should address those questions. So is there a way of getting them listed?
Okay, so the question that's in the chat from Caroline, I think everybody can see, which is, have they been challenged, assuming that means Langdowns, on all the errors in the report?
Okay. So, right, okay, so Richard, could you take that question then, please?
I mean, I'm not sure what the errors are. I've been concentrating on the meeting rather than looking through that report that I was going to look at afterwards. So I made note of Michael's comments, but I haven't had a chance to look at them and if they are errors or just different interpretations of what written, whatever.
Okay. Yeah, so Caroline's confirming it's the errors in the narrative that Michael raised. So they are the same questions, Richard. So you'll look at this after the meeting. Yeah.
Yes, I was concentrating on the meeting, not looking at that.
Sure. Okay, and
Chairman. The only other question that I can see, which is in the Q&A section, is says from Alison Everett, have you advertised for an IT helper on Billboard? You could share the link on social media.
Okay, no, that's not been done. So, but a good suggestion, Alison. Thank you.
I
I've been
think,
keeping
Paul,
an
that
eye
when we last year we did place a general advert, and we got a couple of responses that we followed up before appointing Sam White.
Okay.
Well, I've been keeping an eye on all the questions and comments. I've got notes of them. So I suggest if people want to raise specific questions, they should do so now.
Yeah, there are no hands raised, Chairman.
Okay, so I believe the business is now closed. So thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
One moment, I think Fred Bone got in just in time, Chairman. Apologies.
Oh, well done, Fred.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Fred Bone, Essex Association. I just note that in the minutes of last year's meeting, we had some discussion over the fact that documents were not showing up as having been filed at Companies House, which my understanding that they were submitted to Companies House on time, and Companies House had somehow mislaid them or failed to make them available online or something like that. And I think that, in other words, that the implied criticism of the board that there was last year for not filing things was misplaced. And I think it would be good if this year's minutes could include a note to the effect that it was Companies House's fault, assuming that I'm correct in that belief.
Thank you, Fred. And presumably, Claire, you can confirm that they have been filed this year.
I can confirm that everything's up to date with Companies House and the Charity Commission.
Thank you. Thank you, Fred.
Chairman, there are definitely no more hands.
Good. So thank you very much, everyone. I'll declare the